Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm just checking. It's taken a while for the page to load. I'm just checking whether you can see me and whether you can hear me. Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Then just fantastic. I'm so glad that you can hear me and you can see me. I wanted to start by saying a big thank you for giving me the opportunity to run the session. I know I've got enormous shoes to fill standing in for Rob, but I hope it will go fine and you'll enjoy spending the next 50 or 60 minutes here with me. A little bit of housekeeping. There is another enormous storm starting out outside my window, and it's so happens at times that that prevents that cut off my systems. I would like to be able to show it to you. It looks horrendous, but I hope we will be able to finish the session without any problems. I'm, as Marek said, and thank you so much, Marek, for your kind words. As Marek said, I'm Magdalena Szewczyk, and I've been working for the past 2 decades for Pearson. That sounds like a long time, I know. But even though I've been working for a publishing house producing English language materials for students and teachers from around the world, I'm a teacher deep down in there. And I'm extremely passionate about education. I believe that education is one of the most powerful weapons in the world through which we can help our students become better citizens, through which we can support them in perhaps making the world better in the future. So I'm very much hoping that during our session today, and I'm pretty confident that you're extremely passionate about it as well, and that's why you are here. So I'm very much hoping that in this session, you will be able to learn something from me, and perhaps I'll be able to learn something from you as well. By the way, I'm really bad at doing 2 things at the same time, like presenting and following the chat window. So if you do happen to have questions during the session, please write them down somewhere, and I'm sure we're going to have some time left at the end of the session, so then put them in the chat window and I'll try to answer them. If I do not know an answer, or if we run out of time, I'm sure the organizers, please, I'm sure you can get back to the organizers, and I'm sure they will be able to support you and help you with all your questions. So I wanted to start. The session will be a little bit interactive at times, so I would really appreciate your participation. I wanted to start today with a very short question. I know that before summer holidays, you were probably faced with the grim reality of having to teach from home, having to teach your students at a distance, and that happened quite unexpectedly and quite out of the blue. I just wanted to ask what sort of challenges you had during that time. What did you find most difficult? What sort of challenges that you faced that you wouldn't have had expected if such a situation had not occurred? If you could just put your answers to the chat windows, what did you find most challenging? Time management, that's what I worry about as well. I got closer to you got closer to the kids, not being able to see or hear my students properly. Yes, being able to engage them all at the same time. Kids don't do any work. I'll show you how to make them do some work. Technical issues, yeah, missed face-to-face contact. They appreciate it that we can be together. That's true. Any contact, even if it's virtual, just like we are having today, is highly appreciated. Not all kids working. Yeah, persuading my students to participate early in the morning lessons, managing online lessons. Yeah, so we do have all these problems, lacking face-to-face contact, not knowing if our students are really working with us or not knowing what to do. So I'm very much hoping that during this short session, I'll show you how perhaps you could engage your students, your upper secondary students, and what sort of tools, while I'm showing you what it is that we might be teaching, you will be able to see some tools that I'll be using that you might want to apply in the teaching if, from September, you happen to go back to the classrooms and face the same grim reality of having to teach from homes, rather than having the privilege of going back to the school, which I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. So what happens if this is our reality from September? I would like to start the session by showing you what is the most important question that I always ask myself before I get out in the morning, and what the question is that makes me do what I do. And while doing this, I'd like, and throughout the session, I'll try to show you what it is that we could be teaching our students nowadays to ensure that we are actually helping them to bridge the gap between school and adulthood. They will very soon need to venture into the world, the uncharted territory of adulthood. So what it is that we can do to help them achieve it, and how it is that we can do in terms of the content, the materials that we are choosing to use, whether we teach at school or from home, and the tools that we decide to choose to make sure that we actually do get them engaged, that we do help them do homework, or that we do make them do homework. So this is in a nutshell what I'm hoping to achieve during the session today. And to start with the most important question, I was once sitting at an airport. I know it now seems like a very distant memory, but it did happen. I was sitting at an airport at Heathrow, and I literally a book caught my eye. And that book was called Start With Why, written by Simon Sinek. And I just picked it up, flipped through it, decided to buy it, and started reading it. And I couldn't put it down until I finished it. I highly recommend this book to you. I highly recommend some webinar sessions, some presentations that you can find on YouTube. Here you can see a link to one of those sessions. As Simon designed what he calls a golden circle for the type of questions that we should be asking ourselves at any moment in our lives. Before we decide to do anything in our lives, whether it's professional lives or personal lives, the most important question is always why. We often tend to talk about how we do things, or what we do and what we do through the tools that we use, but we very rarely really answer the question of why we do what we do. I know why I do what I do. I know that I'm passionate about education, as I told you. I care about the world, I care about the students, and perhaps I'm naive, but I'm hoping that through what I do, I will manage at least to help one person perhaps become a better human being, and perhaps become more successful in life when they leave school, venture out into the world. So I was just wondering whether you know your why. Do you know what your why is? Why do you do what you do? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Again, could you just put a few answers into the chat window? I'm very much interested in knowing whether you know why you do what you do. So why? To be of help to the students. We care. We want to inspire. I'm very much hoping for that too, for the kids, because they are there. Why shouldn't you be there? To motivate them to do something meaningful. Yes, I love my job. It connects people and the world. I'm good at it. I feel amazed when I teach. I love motivating students. It changes me. It's very true. We hope to change them, but they very often change us. To show them the purpose. Exactly. I think this is our job nowadays, not just teach them English, but to show them why they exist. Seems like you know your why. Thank you so much for your question, for your answers. So now we know the why. Now we know why we get out of bed in the morning. I'll try during the next 40 minutes, I'll try to show you what it is that we could be teaching and how it is that we could be teaching, because I believe that teaching English is probably not enough nowadays. And I'm not going to preach how you should teach, because you're experts yourselves. You know that best. You know how to do this job probably much better than I do. But I would like to show you some other things that I believe that we should teach our students, especially upper secondary students, to help them become fully rounded citizens of the world, fully rounded citizens of the 21st century, equipped with what it is that they will need when they go out to universities, when they go out into the into the world of different types of professions. And how I'm going to also show you how we could do it. For this horrendous COVID situation, we have come up with a methodology, which is not ours. We picked it up from somebody, and I apologize, I have forgotten who we picked that up from, but we have designed this methodology of a circle that we use, through which we hope we help teachers teach better at a distance. This circle of engaged study for them to learn, activate and practice, we hope is extremely useful in the classrooms, but especially if you have to teach from home at a distance. So if you should go back to teaching from home, oh my God, I don't know whether you're going to hear the wind and the rain. If you have to go back to the classrooms from September, if you don't go to the classrooms, you have to teach from home, I suggest that this is the methodology that you follow. So what is the engaged stage? This is the first thing that we have to do when we start our lesson. During this stage, we do different types of things, hoping that we really do manage to inspire, to get their attention and to keep their attention for the rest of the lesson. So what do? We usually start with a revision of the previous lesson. That's something I recommend. It's best if we can make it exciting, and there are ways of making it exciting. You'll see later on. So we do something to get our students interested. We communicate the purpose of the lesson, or if we don't have anything to revise, we just want to go into teaching, we might start with an exciting question like, what's the highlight of your week? What's the highlight of today? What's your highlight of the past year? If I were to ask you this question, what's the highlight of your past 2 months, let's say of the summertime? Would you be willing to share a highlight, one highlight from the past 2 months in your life? A bike trip, where did you go? Anybody else? Austria, grandson started to walk, wow, that's a big step. My holidays, yeah, my friend's wedding, even in the pandemic, people were getting married. I visited Norway and Croatia, Oik river trip. Okay, maybe after this session, you'll be able to say that the highlight of this day was this session. I'm probably expecting too much. So this is how we would start our classes. And then we naturally will need to proceed to teaching them or them studying. I'll show you a couple of things that you might want to use when you teach from September. The examples that I'll be showing you are from 2 courses that we have just published this year for upper secondary students, one course being High Note and one course being Focused Second Edition. Some of you are probably familiar with Focused First Edition. We have built up on what worked, and this time have made it, we believe, even better by equipping it with amazing digital tools, as well as loads of different types of films that I'm sure I'm gonna like. And the next person today doing the presentation on Focus Second Edition will probably mention as well. The next and the other title is High Note. You'll see loads of examples from High Note. So if you have students who are interested in a lot more in life, they're interested, they like critical thinking, they like debating, doing presentations, all the thinking work that needs to happen in their heads, Highway is what I recommend. So how do we teach? We know that we need to start, we need to use materials that our students will find engaging and motivating. So something that they will be able to relate to. And this is how we hope to create content in our books. We spend a lot of time choosing what it is that we believe students might find interesting. And we believe that you might find it interesting too, because if you like something, it's so much easier to teach, isn't it? So Even if you're teaching very simple things like grammar, and in this case, it's the conditionals and the time clauses, we try to find content and context that students would find extremely interesting, engaging, and easy to relate to. Even if I were to ask you a question, would that be true or false for you? I don't share personal information with people until I know them very well. I don't share personal information with people until I know them very well. Would that be true or false for you? True, true, true. This entire quiz is actually aiming for the students to find out whether how empathetic they are. So this is the sort of content that we try to choose. I recommend it. Another type of context that I hope you will also find interesting is something connected with jobs. So you ask this time again grammar. The second conditional, you give them examples, but those examples come in a quiz that they can do before you actually then discuss the grammar points with them. If you have to teach from school, which I hope you will from September, you can use the paper book. But we were very much conscious of the fact that many people will probably need to start teaching from home again. So we have put all the content of the students' book into the digital world, into what we call Pearson English portal. And in there, the whole book has been turned into interactive digital activities that you can do with your students, that they can check answers to, that you can present their answers to them during the session by ticking true or falses. I highly recommend it. If you have to teach from home, again, I recommend using the students' books on Pearson English portal, because the interactivity there and the sort of content that is something that I'm pretty sure students will find extremely engaging, and it's going to be so much easier for you to keep their attention when you're displaying all the content. One of the ways of teaching grammar, obviously, is showing them the grammar rules, going through the grammar rules and explaining the rules to them, then doing exercises. Hopefully the presentation content is exciting. However, we have made a decision. If you want to do it in a slightly different way, if you don't just want to show them the presentation content, then explain the grammar rules, perhaps you might want to show them, you might want to use something that they relate to very easily, like a short clip. And the clip that I'm going to show you in a minute is a clip that comes from Focus 2nd edition. It's the second conditional through a vox pop, through a vlog that we recorded in the streets of London. I'll show it to you. If you are, unfortunately, one thing that I will not be able to show to you, if you are showing these films from the Pearson English portal, you'll be able to turn the subtitles on and off, on and off, on and off. So if you decided that your students are capable of understanding the clip without following the text, the subtitles, you can play the clips without them. If you had slightly weaker grips and you wanted to give them a bit more support, you can very easily in the portal turn the subtitles on so that students follow them. You can stop at any time. You can explain things that they might have problems with. I won't play the whole thing, but I'll play a little bit of it for you so that you can see for yourselves what it can be like.
Hello, my name's Jessica. Every week I go out and interview people in the street and put the video on my blog. Today I'm talking about dream jobs. If you could have any job in the world, what would you want to be?
If I could have any job in the world, I would want to be a teacher because I really like being able to help people and give them a step forward in life.
If I could have any job in the world, I would like to be the owner of Apple, the CEO, so I could have everything at my fingertips, and a lot of wealth to that as well.
I think I'd want to be a composer. I love writing music.
I would like to be a YouTuber. Even though it's not an actual career, I do like the idea of doing your own creations, having your own self as a director.
If you could work anywhere in the world, where would it be?
If I could work anywhere in the world, I think I would like to work... Actually, I think I'd like to carry on working in Oxford, just because I really like the city. It's a nice size, it's comfortable.
If I was to choose somewhere to
Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. The film goes on for another 30 seconds with the people answering the second question. So you can play the film for your students. You can you can stop at different. You can ask them different questions at the beginning. So what sort of professions are mentioned? What sort of places are mentioned? Whatever you want to take out of the film and ask your students, but then you focus. You take out those couple of sentences where they literally. I'm sure you saw. That they use the second conditional quite a lot. We make them use the second conditional quite a lot. Although the answers were not scripted, they were extremely natural. We interviewed around 50 people for the 3 people to appear in the clip. So there was a lot of work, but we believe that it was all worth the effort. So you can extract those second conditional sentences and ask and explain the grammar rules, and then hopefully follow up with asking students to answer the questions that were actually asked in the film. And this is something that I would like you to be able to do now. In the chat window, I am putting a link to the site where I would like you to go now. Please go to this site and I will tell you go there and put in this code 7544691. Once you're there, please try to type in the answer to this question. If you could have any job in the world, what would you want to be? If you could have any job in the world, what would you want to be? Type the answer to this question. I'm not sure it's working. Oh my God. Are you trying to do it? Are you trying to do it now? What was the number, please? I can't sign up. Okay, I'll send the link in the chat again. Go to this link. Right, some people are in there. And the number is 7544691. 7544691. What you're saying right now is you putting in the answers, and we're saying what sort of jobs, if you could have any job in the world, what sort of jobs you would like to be able to do. And we can see some teacher, fantastic. I was very much hoping for this answer. A vet, an actress. Aren't we all actors on the stage for our students to some extent? I think we all are. A florist. The teacher is the winner. So the majority of us wouldn't like to change our professions. Fantastic. I was very much hoping for it. A king. Oh my God, which country? A tutor, which is like a teacher. Any other answers? But you basically, perhaps the majority of us actually would like to be a teacher, as it seems, this seems to be the big world, the biggest word there. So as you can see, this is something that you can do with your students. Once you show them the clips, you can use different tools which are available on the internet. I'm sure you can very easily Google them out. This particular one, which is the Mentimeter, is something that I recommend a lot. There is a lot there, it's free. So you can use those tools to work with your students. I'm sure they would be extremely thrilled to see you use something that they are very familiar with and very happy to be using and very skilled at themselves. So I'll go back to the presentation. So this is the sort of, this is how you could teach grammar. Well, I also believe that we should teach our students apart from grammar, because we know that we are dealing with intelligent human beings. We want to teach them something more than just English. So what I believe is extremely difficult is teaching students to think for themselves. We very often tell them what to think, but this is not what I would recommend. I'd rather recommend that we teach them how to think. How can we do it? We need to ask them critical thinking questions. We need to expose them to content which will make them give a critical answer to the question, analyze, look for different solutions, look for arguments why they are giving this answer and not any other correct questions, basically making them think. So in the portal for both courses, we have put in different types of films as well that are meant to make the lessons interesting, make the lessons engaging for them, but also answer critical questions that the students might want to ask. I'll show you a short clip. This clip is around 3-4 minutes long, but I'll just show you the first 30-40 seconds. You will see a critical dilemma, a moral dilemma that the film will show, that the film will demonstrate. Again, the films in the portal have got the subtitles, so you can play the film with the subtitles on and off. I would recommend, depending on the type of film, that you stop at certain points and ask the questions which are asked in the film itself before perhaps you reveal the whole thing. Or you can show the whole thing and then go back and go through the whole thing again and ask the questions. I'll show you how it goes. This time from high note. Why do we lie? Isn't this an ethical dilemma?
This is Dan Ariely, a professor at Duke University in America. He is on a mission to understand what makes people act dishonestly or against their own morals.
How many people here have lied at least once since the beginning of 2014?
Have you lied at least once since the beginning of 2014? Have you lied at least once since 2014? Would you put it in the chat? Yes, I'm sure more than once. Exactly. Okay, let's see what's next.
How many people here think of yourself in general as honest, wonderful people?
Do you think of yourself as, in general, as an honest person? So how come we think we are honest and yet we lie?
The same group. How can it be? How can it be that at the same time we think of ourselves as honest and then we recognize that we're dishonest?
Dan thinks that we are able to justify small acts of dishonest behaviour because of what he calls fudge factors. Excuses we use which allow us to feel like our dishonesty.
If you want to find out what reasons there might be because we lie, and whether all lies are bad or not, and what happens next, there is a clip on the portal that you can watch with your students. The beauty of those films is also that they are equipped with worksheets, and those worksheets have loads of different types of interactive exercises because they were made interactive on the portal that you can then do with your students. So you've got everything at your fingertips there. You don't have to search. There is plenty of such content that I highly recommend. So this is the study stage. We make sure that we show them something engaging, motivating, and I hope something which they are perhaps not used to, so something that will interest them and keep their attention better. But then we need to go to the activate stage, which is the practice in a way, but practice in a meaningful way. So the practice that I would do in the classroom with students or during the virtual lessons. So rather than doing exercises which are sort of like, you know, those technical type of exercises when you do multiple choices, true falses, dragging and dropping, or filling in the answers, I would focus in this during this stage on questions which are more open, which make students think, which make them think in a critical way, find arguments, organize their thoughts in a specific way. It's extremely important if you have to teach from home to be able to use different types of tools which are available on the internet. Different types of what I recommend are tools like the Mentimeter, which has different types of presentations, tools like Wordwall, different types of chats and Jamboards. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So when you do that, it's better for them to give their opinions. They can either, as you did, type in their answers, or you can ask them to speak out and share their opinions with the rest of the groups. If you've got Zoom and you've got for instance, Zooms, there are many other tools as well. If you've got Zoom and could put them into small breakout rooms where they could work in 2s or 3s, you can go in there and listen into what they're saying. Amazing things that you can do with them. It's extremely important to be able to agree on that success criteria for them to achieve that kind of a tasks. So you need to set the goals for them, what it is that you want them to do. Make sure that they are specific. So you tell them exactly how long you're giving them, what sort of questions, you might give them templates that they might want to follow, what sort of tasks and questions that you want them to answer. Make sure that you're as specific and as concrete as possible. Again, I'll show you a couple of types of content that you can be doing. Like if you're doing a writing task and teaching them an opinion essay, it's good to give them content which they will again relate to and want to write about. So an essay like, is it better to spend your money on experiences or possessions? What do you think? Is it better to spend your money on experiences or possessions? Would you type that in? Experiences or possessions? Experiences. That's why we go on those bike trips in Norway. That's why we go to weddings. Experiences. Yeah, we seem to agree. Well, you never know what the students might say. They are only 16, 17, 18, 19. They might have different suggestions. But you teach them something which is engaging. You take them through all the regular stages of how to write, and then you ask them. That's what I mean by activating. Asking them to produce a creative piece of writing, or to produce a short utterance, a short speech, a short presentation, or perhaps take part in a debate later on, where you divide students into 2 different groups, and you can do it even in a virtual classroom. Some groups prepare arguments saying that it's better to buy experiences. The other group prepares arguments to say why it's better to collect possessions. They exchange their opinions in the breakout rooms. You can change the breakout rooms, jumble them up a bit so that they can share their opinions with others. And then they will have plenty of arguments at their disposal that they can use when doing the proper writing. Another type of task that you can find in the book or on the portal is asking them questions which are open-ended, even though they seem to be close-ended tasks, because first of all, students need to fill in prepositions. So for example, we've got a sentence. When you're teaching them different types of prepositions, what sort of things are you interested? They would need to put in. What after-school activities are you involved in? If you have the luxury of being able to teach from Pearson English Portal, you will be able to fill in their answers and show them automatically whether their answers were correct or incorrect. If they were incorrect, they can have another go until they actually get it right. So that's the beauty of the portal. But also it's important to be able to ask them personalized questions. So even if you're doing just a regular activating stage where it seems like a regular practice exercise, but it's not, because it's personalized, and it is very easy for them to relate to it. And then you ask them to answer those questions themselves. So what bands and singers are you keen on? That's a question for us. Would you share a name of a singer, of a band that you're very much keen on? Perhaps that's something that I'll listen to afterwards. What singers or bands, like you two used to listen to the Match here and Muse? You too. David Bowie. The late David Bowie, the Beatles, some of them no longer with us. Alan Walker. I think I need to go back to him. Thank you. So that sort of questions you can ask your students, and I'm sure they'll be happy to share their answers. Who wouldn't like to share what they listen to in their free time? And the last stage is the practice stage. It's the stage that we usually set for homework. So we either ask them to do exercises in the workbook, or you can give them exercises on the portal as well. There are plenty. We have turned the entire workbooks into digital content as well. So the My English Lab has got loads of different types of activities that students can do at home. As you can see, we have created all the all the workbook units and put them onto the portal. So you can give them homework in their environment in which they are so much used to, which is on the net. They go there, and the beauty of this system is that not only will they get instant feedback. So once they submit the exercises, they will see which answers they gave correctly and where they perhaps have made a mistake. So they will immediately, within the next second, see how many points they scored and why they scored badly or well. And for you, the advantage will be that you will have access to common error reports, in which, if you've got time in the evening, or if you're watching something boring on Netflix, you might at the same time want to check what sort of mistakes your students have made. So that's when you go to the classrooms, or when you teach at a distance the next lesson, you started with going through the mistakes, analyzing the mistakes that they have made, and explaining, focusing only on those errors that they have made. So you wouldn't need to go through the whole thing to see whether they have managed or not, whether they have coped, or whether they need more support. You will be able to see which mistakes they made and where perhaps they will need to get some remedial content to be able to perform better the next time you set a similar homework. The My English Lab has got plenty of other activities as well. So not just the activities from the workbook, but we give students more vocab activities, more grammar activities, more use of English activities, as well as more activities to practice for reading and listening, especially if they have to take some high-stakes school leaving exams and they need more practice for those two skills, for those two passive skills. So I'm recommending that you practice the passive skills and the passive enabling functions like vocab, grammar, use of English on the web, while you focus in the classrooms on the activities which are more open. They require a lot more critical thinking from the students, so that you can support them in that, so that you can make them better speakers, better writers, because these are the skills that they will really need to perform well when they go out into the world after they leave school. So this is the circle that we have created for how to teach at a distance. I hope that you have seen how. I will try to show you now what it is that we might want to be teaching our upper secondary students apart from the regular lessons of teaching them English. We know that we need to teach them English. That's what we do. That's why we get out of bed in the morning. But what else is it that is extremely important to them? These are some employability skills that we hardly ever have time to focus on and which are really important. So we're not going to talk about literacy, numeracy, digital fluency, which are core academic competencies that the teachers of maths and teachers of other subjects teach at school. We're not going to talk about occupational competencies like those hard skills that you need to perform a specific job, like being an engineer, being an accountant, being a nurse, especially things like accounting, etc. What it is that they need. But there are other types of skills like personal and social capabilities or career knowledge and transition skills that I believe we can really try to help them with. And the course that we have designed, which is High Note, has got plenty of lessons dedicated to that, dedicated to helping you improve and support you in working with your students on personal and social capabilities or skills or career knowledge skills like teamwork, like creative thinking, like communication and collaboration, like managing stress, for instance. Here are examples of skills that we focus on in High Note, things like understanding how advertising works or being able to spot fake news, handling stress, building resilience. Depending on the level, we have picked skills to make sure that students will be able to cope both in terms of the language, but also in terms of their mental capacity, because we know that there is a huge difference between a 15-year-old and a 19-year-old. So we have made sure that across, apologies, across, apologies for that, I've been talking for too long probably now, that we choose the skills which are at the right level for students, whether they are learning from the very starting levels of the course at A2, B1, or whether actually they are reaching C1 when you're teaching them. I'll show you just three examples of the lessons that come from High Note. One of the lessons which we believe should actually probably appear in every level, and it does appear in a couple of levels, is how to give a presentation. We teach that because we believe that in their future careers or at university, they will very often need to give a short presentation, even if they were just to present themselves. So at lower levels, we will teach them how to structure a good presentation. In higher levels, we teach them how to give a persuasive presentation, which is this particular lesson from level 4. Each of those lessons ends with a life skills project, which requires students to work in groups and create, in this case, a persuasive presentation to show to you. That can very easily be done in the classrooms. That can very easily be set in a virtual classroom as well. So they can do those presentations as I'm doing my presentation right now. They can share their screens. They can show you resources that they have collected. Actually, I believe that the virtual world is pretty good for giving presentations, for structure, for showing how you structured your presentation, for showing how you can for creating a persuasive presentation. Another example is how to choose a future career, this time from High Note 2. Something that the students definitely struggle with. Even when they are 18, 19, they often say, I don't know what it is that I want to do. So perhaps by doing such a lesson, you will at least help them to see where their potential might be. And I'm not saying that we need to pretend to be experts in job counseling or anything like that, because we are not. But whatever support we can give our students, I'm sure it will be something that they will appreciate a lot and they will love you for it. and I'll show you one more example, how to set SMART goals. This is what I said at the beginning. You said that you had problems with teaching from the distance, with setting expectations, setting the goals, and for them to following through with what you expected them to do. So how we can teach them how to try to set a SMART goal. By the way, do you know what SMART stands for? Can anybody venture the guess and put your answer into the chat window? What does SMART stand for when we talk about SMART goals? Specific, measurable, yep. What does A stand for? Achievable. What does R stand for? Yeah, realistic. And what does T stand for? Time measures, time bound, yes. Fantastic. Oh my God, you probably know better about it before I did. Before I knew before I started preparing. No, I did know a little bit about it. I'm joking, but yeah, as you can see, that's fun. You can ask them. Perhaps they know what SMART stands for. But it's important to teach them how to set those goals and show them based on an example, which will be the life skills project. How to choose a goal and how to follow through with all the steps that they will need to design in order to be able to achieve it. Make sure that you do it through something which is really short in terms of time that you set for them, so that they can very easily see the steps in practice, and then you can have a go and see how it goes and analyze it with them. That requires some critical thinking as well. Yeah, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, or realistic sometimes, and time-bound. So I hope you have learned something, and now you perhaps know what it is that we know, why we do what we do, whether we need to teach, whether from September we go back to the classrooms, fingers crossed for that, or whether you need to teach from home. And we also hope now know what else, apart from just teaching English, we could teach, and perhaps what tools we could use, what tools might be available to make our lessons more motivating, more engaging, more memorable for our students. There are some demos of the Focus and High Note textbooks that we've got on our portal. So if you wanted to have a go and see how they work and play with the demos, I'm sure the local team, the Ventures Books team, will be able to support you with that. I'm sure they will be able to share some codes so that you can go into the portal and see for yourself what else is there. Thank you so much for the 50 minutes that we've been together. I hope you have managed to learn something. I have definitely learned something about you, which was extremely enjoyable for me. Thank you so much. We do have 10 minutes left, and I was very much hoping that we would. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. I can follow the chat now. So thank you so much. So I should be able to answer some questions if you happen to have them. I'll wait for a few more seconds. I teach adults. Can you come up with some nice topics, what to ask them in September, except the holiday, please? You can ask them about the highlight, as I asked you about the highlight. So you're not asking what did you do, but what did you find most exciting during those two months? Who knows, maybe they will say going out. We knew it was extremely difficult at the beginning, so perhaps that's something that they will find that they would have found extremely exciting for them. You know your adult students better than I do. You can ask them for highlights in their professional lives, like, have you learned something new over the past 2 months with the luxury of the extra time that you had on your hands? Like, without having to travel to work every day. So have you learned? How did you spend that time? Have you achieved something new? I would ask about those two months that you were apart, and depending on whether they work, whether they are already professionals, I would ask them about what they have managed to achieve with the extra time that they had available, or maybe why they haven't achieved anything, what maybe why they see it as time wasted. I'll probably do something like that. Any other topics? Well, you probably know your students better than I do. It will vary from one group to another. Has High Note Advanced been released? Not yet. It's coming out next year. So this year, 2020, we published 4 levels from a strong A2 level to B2+, and the last level, which is the advanced level C1, C1+, will come out early next year. Are there any other questions? What do you think the students would like best about focus? I'm a little bit biased when it comes to focus because it's my baby and I've worked on it for a long time now. I hope everything. I hope the majority. I think the topics that we have managed to search for, and I think the way we turn that into the interactive content on the portal. But it is mainly the topics and the fact that the authors that I had the pleasure of working with, Sue Kay, Von Jones and Dan Brayshaw, they're extremely creative. They had teenagers themselves, so they know what teenagers are interested in. But they're also, they focus a lot on things that can be easily personalizable. So something that the students would find extremely easy to relate to. Unbelievable. After the storm, I've got the sun shining now. You can probably see it shining into my eyes and blinding me. So the approach, also the fact that we focus a lot on vocab. So I would say it's a very good course when it comes to teaching vocabulary. There's a lot of vocab in focus, and I believe that when I'm learning Spanish, I might be making mistakes in my grammar, but what I definitely lack every single time I want to say something is the words or the specific, what do you call it? ¿Cómo se llama en español? And I keep asking the same questions over and over again. Are there any notes from the webinar available to refer back to? Marek, that will probably be the question for you. I'm not sure whether the session was being recorded and can be shared with the participants again. I don't know. Sometimes psychological problems with online studying, they do, and that's why it's even more critical to be able to do things that they will find easy to relate to, and they'll keep their attention. I know it's a hard job. I see it myself. It's not the same as teaching people face to face, but hey, if that's the reality that we will need to face from September, you just need to grin and bear it and do your best, which I'm sure you will. Oh, the presentation will be shared on the website, so you'll be able to see it again. Okay, thank you so much. I think we'll finish 5 minutes earlier, but that means you're going to have 5 more minutes for a coffee or for a chat with your partners, children, dogs, cats, fish, whatever you have at home or whoever you're sharing your home with. Go for a short walk. Thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck with your students from September. I wish you the best of luck choosing the right materials for your students. Enjoy what you do, regardless of what happens. Enjoy what you do and know your why. Remember why we did, because if we remember that we did because we hope that we will make a difference, even a tiny bit of a difference to the world, that's really significant. We are lucky to have this profession. So enjoy every minute of it. Thank you so much and hopefully see you in the future. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, hello everybody. Can you all hear me and see me? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So welcome to my session. My name is Bara Mikova and I work for Ventures Books as an ELT consultant. And today I'm going to give you a product presentation on Focus Second Edition. You have already heard a little bit about Focus Second Edition in the previous webinar, but my webinar is going to be a little bit more product oriented. Before I begin with the presentation itself, I just wanted to ask you if you have any questions related to the course book, please wait till the end of my presentation. There will be a couple of minutes for your questions because it will be easier for me to follow the chat box and give you the answers. Okay, so we can start. I will start with some key information, and I also wanted to ask you if there is anyone who already knows Focus First Edition. If there are any teachers who already use or are familiar with the first edition of Focus. Can you just type it in the chat box? Yes? Okay. No? Great, so we have both. Okay, thank you. So it seems that some people are familiar with Focus, some of you aren't. So I'll give you the key information, and then I will also give you a little bit of comparison of the two editions. So let's just begin with the key information. In this slide, you can see the whole line of Focus. There are altogether 5 levels. Level 5 hasn't been published yet. So now we still have Focus 1 to 4. But hopefully next year, or at the beginning of next year, Focus 5 will be out. So Focus Second Edition is a richer version of the best-selling first edition. It's a series for upper secondary students, and it works with the proven 3Ms methodology, which I will explain a little bit further on. And Focus Second Edition was created in collaboration with BBC. Okay, so some key facts. Focus Second Edition is in British English. It is designed for roughly 3 to 5 lessons per week. So it offers from 88 to 100 plus hours of materials, because there are plenty of extra materials, which I will mention later on. And there are, let's say, 3 key goals that this course book has. The first one is to keep your students inspired and motivated. The second one is to develop students' vocabulary for their overall language fluency. And then the last one, or the third one, is to help your students achieve great exam results. So be it Maturita or be it Cambridge exams or any other language exams, this book is great if you need your students to prepare for these types of exams. So just to tell you a little bit or briefly about the 3Ms methodology, it consists of motivation, memory, and meaning. So motivation means that in this book you can find a lot of authentic materials, BBC videos, vlog style videos, and there are relatable topics, engaging topics for your students, which should keep them motivated. Memory means that the new language is recycled systematically throughout the book. There is also word store, which helps your students practice and remember vocabulary. I will also mention word store a little bit later on. And then meaning means that there is plenty of meaningful practice in the course book, in the workbook, as well as in extra materials, in extra worksheets. So who is this book actually for. So it is meant for students who are motivated, but also for students who need a little bit of that extra motivation or engagement. So it is a book which is designed to cater for all types of students or all needs of your students. It's also for students who need to learn or practice English for exams, as I mentioned, maturita or other types of exams. And they also need to develop their language skills, not just to use them in the classroom, but also outside the classroom, so in their future life, in their future studies. In terms of teachers, this book is good for teachers who need an intuitive course that is easy to use, that they can use without extra preparation time. It's also good if you are looking for a course which is able to cater for different students' needs and different types of students, and also for teachers who maybe prefer or like to put emphasis on vocabulary and grammar development. So what is new in Focus second edition? Now I'll be doing a little bit of comparison between the two editions. So let's just start with the very first page of a unit. So overall, the second edition contains 60% new content, including new vocabulary and, of course, new design. If you know the previous edition, you can see that the design has been slightly altered, but generally it's very, very similar. The structure is also very similar. So you can see that this is a vocabulary lesson. This is unit 4, and this is the first lesson. And you can see that there is the title, the overall topic of the unit, and then it is very small. I don't know if you can see it, but each unit starts with an opening proverb or saying, or simply something that you can use to introduce the topic. You can use it to write on the board, and you can ask your students to discuss it. And this just serves to activate their knowledge and their opinions and so on. There is also a video, a BBC video, which I will show you and mention later on. You can use these videos to introduce the topic. You can use them at the beginning of the unit, but you can use them to conclude the unit as well. Each lesson is introduced by a can-do statement, so your students know what they are doing and why they are doing it. Here you can also see the word store or the navigation to word store. It's not the word store itself, but it's just a navigation, and there are some extra exercises related to vocabulary. There are also new reading lessons. So the texts are slightly altered in the editions. So here you can see that there is always a picture or multiple pictures to activate your students' knowledge, to help them understand the text. And there are also vocabulary exercises, grammar exercises, also the navigation to word store again. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the videos, because the videos are quite an important part of the new edition. Some of you might be used to the two types of videos which are in the first edition, and those are grammar animations and interactive speaking videos. These stay in the second edition, but on top of that, there are two different types of videos. The first one being BBC videos. These are authentic video clips produced by the BBC. And these videos, that's the one I showed you at the beginning of the unit. And these just provide you with some extension to the vocabulary lesson, or you can use them as an introduction to the whole unit. You can use them for students to discuss, and each of these videos is accompanied by a worksheet. I will show you the worksheet in a bit. The second type of new videos is focus vlogs, or so-called vox pops. You have already seen one in the previous session with Magdalena. I'm going to play a short bit, just in case there is somebody who missed the first session, so to show you what it looks like. These are basically short clips filmed with real people on the streets of London, and the target grammar is presented there in manageable language, in manageable chunks, and most importantly, in real context. So there are also speakers of different countries, of different dialects, so your students just have the opportunity to hear different people talking. You can use these videos as a prompt for students then to create their own vlogs or their own role plays, dialogues, and so on. Each vlog is also accompanied by a worksheet, and I will show you these worksheets a little bit later. I'm going to play a short bit of the videos. I'm going to start with the BBC video. So please just wait a second. I'm going to play it.
Flavour makes our food delicious. Each flavour is a combination of smell and taste. When you get that combination right, food tastes amazing. But what is taste? Thai food is particularly good at combining a wide range of different tastes in one dish.
So this is a Thai stir fry, and I'm very fond of Thai. There is a bit of fried chicken, lemon, garlic, onion, a real sort of explosion of taste. And it's really strange to think that all these sensations which are going on in my mouth at the moment are generated by 5 simple tastes.
In the cups, there are liquids containing these 5 tastes. Michael has no idea which is which.
Salty, that's definitely salty. Sweet. That is sort of bitter, a bit like coffee. And this is similar, but more lemony and makes your mouth pucker up. This is sour. And this one is really hard to describe. This is the taste that has been most recently discovered. This is umami.
The word umami
All right, so this video was about umami. I cut it short. It's over 4 minutes long, but that would be too much for us. Have you ever heard of umami? Do you know what that is? Or you know what that is, but have you heard of it? No, no. Okay, so something new. Good. So the video goes on and they explain what umami is and how you can extract it from tomatoes and so on. So this is something you can definitely watch with your students. Do you think they would like it? They would enjoy it? Okay. Maybe yes. Okay, thank you. Good. So the next video I'm going to play is the vlog.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to my vlog. Today is a big day for me because I've got my friends coming over and I have to cook for them. I've never done it before, so I'm kind of nervous. I'm hoping not to make too many mistakes. I'm thinking of cooking some pasta and tomato sauce because it's quick and simple. What about you? Are you going out to eat tonight? Where are you going and what will you have? where are you going to have dinner this evening?
I'm probably going to cook it myself and eat at my flat. Nothing exciting.
Hopefully my mum will cook me dinner when I get home, because I've just been out for lunch, so have dinner at home.
I'm going to have dinner somewhere in London, maybe near the Gloucester Underground station that's near my hotel.
I'm going to have dinner at home this evening.
This evening I'm going to Chinatown to have dinner.
Oh, can I come too?
All right, so that was just for you to see what these videos look like. I can see Elena's question, are these videos created only for this course? Yes, these videos are made specifically for Focus Second Edition. Okay, in this slide you can see the video worksheets I mentioned. So the first one is the BBC worksheet. They are structured as before, while, and after watching tasks. There is also some extra vocabulary you can practice with your students. Here is the vlog worksheet, and there is always an exercise on life skills in the vlog worksheets. Each worksheet is designed for 60 minutes. So then, in the second edition, there are brand new use of English pages. These start in level 2. So they are not in level 1 because the level is a bit lower or low for use of English practice. But starting in level 2, you can find these pages on use of English. These come in very handy for preparation for maturita or other types of exams. So now, what is unique in Focus Second Edition? So first, it is Word Store. I've already mentioned that. Word Store is a booklet which is attached at the back of the course book, and it contains vocabulary exercises. There are different types of exercises. There are extensions or revision of vocabulary that is in the course book. You can see that here is an exercise for translation. Here is sort of sorting, make or do. Here are phrasal verbs, collocations, and then there is a box for the students to write their favorite words. So it covers all different types of exercises, vocabulary exercises. Then vocabulary development program, that is something that goes throughout the whole course book. This is a picture taken from the workbook. So this is what the workbook looks like. You can see that this is a vocabulary lesson, and it always starts with a show what you know exercise. Here is language or vocabulary that your students should be familiar with, and it should help them activate what they already know. Then the double page ends with show what you know. So it rounds up and revises all the vocabulary that students have practiced and learned throughout this whole section. Then you may have noticed that there are exercises, again, throughout the whole course book, which have got the heading exam focus. So these are special exercises which correspond to the exercises that students, again, encounter at maturita or other language exams. So here, for example, here we have matching, here we have gapped text. So this is something that your students encounter very often. Then the word lists, which are in Focus Second Edition, are organized around lessons. This is something that is different to the first edition. Here you can see that they are organized around the lessons. They are in alphabetical order, but it makes it easier for students to find what they need. You can also find the word list at the end of each or after each unit. So they are not at the very back of the book as it is in the first edition, and that should also help your students find their way to the vocabulary. Okay, so now I would like to mention some extra materials that we create in Ventures books. Since Focus Second Edition is a global edition, the book only contains English word lists. So we create English-Czech dictionaries. Each, as a part of each dictionary, is also grammar reference in Czech and exam strategies in Czech. Then some of you might know that in the first edition, there were in level 2 and 3, there were Maturita pages at the very back of the book. So now we are preparing a booklet and which will contain 8 focus on Maturita lessons. These are only in levels 2 and 3 because these are the levels that are around the B1 Maturita level. So if you buy the book, you will get the dictionary together with the reference and the strategies. And if you buy levels 2 and 3, there is the Maturita booklet that comes with it. Okay, so now the components of the course book. So of course you can buy the print version of the book. The students get a code to My English Lab where they can find some extra digital activities and resources. They can also find the audio, so they can use this possibly at home. Then you also have the possibility to buy the student's book with online practice. That means online workbook. The workbook is in My English Lab. I think Magda had some slides where you could see what My English Lab looks like and a little bit of how it works. So this is useful, especially if you teach now or in distance teaching, and each student get their own code, unique code, where they log in and they get the access to the online workbook. Then there is also the print traditional workbook, and for the teachers there is the teacher's book with code to presentation tool and online practice and resources. I will also show you what presentation tool looks like. Then there are also class CDs and Pearson practice app, which is available to all students for free if they buy the book. Okay, so once again, here you can just you can see it graphically. So you have got the option of standard package and premium package, and you can buy the book. Then you get the digital activities and resources, and then students have the paper workbook, which they can use at home or in class. That's up to you. Then there is the premium package, where students buy the print book, but they have got an online workbook that is accessible via a unique code which they have in the book. For both options, there is the app. In the app, you can find audio, video, and some extra practice. So for the teachers, there is the possibility of the teacher's book, of course, which looks like the student's book, but there are with overprinted answers. So you have got one book. You don't need to carry an extra teacher's book and a student's book. You have got just one. There are also ideas for extra activities. There are references to additional materials. There are scripts. There is the workbook answer key, photocopiable materials, culture notes, and so on. There are also CDs available if you need them, but all the audio is accessible via the presentation tool. In the presentation tool, you can find teachers' resources, assessment package, video tutorials, and so on. So this is what Pearson English Portal looks like. If you get the teacher's book, you get a unique code which you register yourself, and then you add the code. And you have got the two options: presentation tool and resources. So presentation tool resources looks like that. You have got the assessment package with different types of texts. Then there are photocopiable materials, audio, video. There are word lists, life skills. I will mention that a little bit later on. So in there, you can also find detailed lesson plans. There is a detailed lesson plan for every lesson. So really, if you don't have that much time to prepare your lesson, you can just download the lesson plan and you can follow it. All of them are designed for 40 minutes, and you can simply follow all the instructions, and you should have a successful class with your students. This is just a sample of the photocopyable resources. There are 7 or 8 of these worksheets for each unit, so there are plenty of extra materials. Okay, then there are also 3 lessons on life skills. So this one in particular is on how to avoid time wasters. So you can use these to spice up your lessons a little bit, to have a break from the book, but focus on something a little bit different. Okay, this is what presentation 2 looks like. This is the interactive board. This is the interactive book, excuse me, for the interactive board. You can use this either on the interactive whiteboard, or you can just project it on a whiteboard. You can play the videos, the recordings, you can even download it, so you can have it offline in your workbook, in your computer. Okay, then there are a couple of useful widgets in presentation 2, such as the timer or stopwatch. So you can use this when you are playing games with your students. You don't have to look for any other website or use your phone, anything, you have it right there. You can also work with teams, so you can add as many teams as you want, and you can keep the score on the board. And then there is also the dictionary. So if you just quickly need to look something up, you type in the word and it gives you the pronunciation, the definition, and examples. So that is it. If you are interested in more about Focus 2nd edition, you can visit either our website on Ventures Books, or you can go to Pearson website, where you find plenty of extra materials. You can also contact me or my colleagues. My colleague Zuzana Polova, who works in Moravia, and my colleague Judita Totová, who works in Slovakia. Feel free to call us, send us an email, or you can also arrange a meeting with us where we help you to choose the right book for you, or we can simply answer oral questions. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to follow all the questions that showed up in the chat. So if there is something you would like to ask right now. I can see my colleagues answering some of your questions, so thank you very much. Okay. Okay, I can see somebody typing, so I'm going to wait. Regarding the prices, again, you can find all the prices on our website in our online shop. Perhaps one of my colleagues could link it so that you can get directly to the prices. Okay, any other questions? Somebody is typing. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much too. Okay, so it looks like that's it. Focus 5, is it available? Not yet. It will be available next year. You're welcome. Okay, so again, if there are any other questions you would like to ask, it's not clear to me the difference between premium and non-premium. So the premium package means that you buy the physical book, the paper book, but you get an online workbook. The standard package means that you buy the printed book and the printed workbook. Okay, so if you have any further questions, feel free to contact me or my colleagues, as I already said, and we will be happy to help you with anything you need. Okay, so thank you very much for today's session, and I might see some of you tomorrow with my second product presentation on roadmap. So goodbye.
Okay, hello everybody. Please, just in the chat box, let me know if you can hear me. All right, fantastic. It looks like the audio is working. That's wonderful. I'm just going to close this visual for a moment. I'll get my presentation up shortly, but first I just want to say hello. My name is John. I'll be your teacher for the next 60 minutes or so. Just a quick background for me. Originally, I'm from California. We've got a little California quiz coming up shortly, so get ready for that. And I moved to Europe in 2006, and I've been an English teacher ever since. And I started out teaching in a private language school, and from there I moved into the public sector. I taught lots of younger learners, secondary students, adults, of course. Currently, I work at one of the universities in Wrocław, Poland, where I live. I also work for British Council, and I'm also a part-time teacher trainer, mostly for Pearson. I was actually in Czech Republic a couple years ago. Doing a training tour. I was in Olomouc, I believe, Olomouc, if I'm saying that correctly. Are there any teachers here from Olomouc who are signed in from Olomouc? Anybody? I was also, I believe, in České Budějovice. Anybody from České Budějovice? Apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Oh, we've got one. Daniela, Olomouc, near Olomouc. Okay. Český Krumlov, Tomas. Wow, what a beautiful city. I went there just as a tourist. A while ago, 10 years ago or so. I did a little trip to Prague, Český Krumlov, and a couple other really small cities around there. Český Krumlov is beautiful. If any of you have never been, but you live in Czech Republic, please go see Český Krumlov. Really nice city. Radka in Liberec, yeah, very close to the Polish border. Some beautiful mountains there, I believe. I'm really into snowboarding, so I've got about a 2-hour drive to get from Wrocław to the Czech mountains, and we often go to or through Liberec. Okay, good. And then I imagine there's a lot of teachers from Prague as well, right? Oh, from Slovakia. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I've actually only been to Slovakia once, and I didn't really go to Slovakia. I was just kind of across the Polish border, kind of in the mountains. Okay. Wow, we got people from all over the place. This is one of the great things about e-learning, right? About online learning, is you can bring people from all over the country or potentially all over the world into one classroom, one webinar, one conference, whatever it happens to be. It's one of the things I like about e-learning, basically. And presumably everybody here was teaching online last semester. Just a quick yes, if you were teaching, doing some kind of online teaching in the last school semester. I guess probably everybody. I mean, I don't know what exactly the pandemic situation was in Czechia, but I assume it was very similar to in Poland, where everything moved very quickly online. Yeah, it looks like pretty much everybody. Yeah, I personally, I liked it, but I taught online before. It wasn't my first time teaching online. So I was a little bit lucky, but I know a lot of my colleagues at the university were basically freaking out because they had to switch over to do everything online. But presumably everyone's back. I think in Poland, public schools are open starting next week, right? I'm assuming the same is true in Czechia. Universities are still going to be online. I'm also curious to hear from everybody if you're a primary, secondary, or tertiary teacher, and if you're in the public or private sector. So could you please just put a short note in the chat box, you know, primary, upper or lower, secondary, upper or lower, tertiary, and then also if you're in the private language school or if you work in a public school, just to get an idea of who where everybody is kind of working. Okay, yeah, it looks pretty mixed so far. Okay. Yeah, I worked in a public secondary school for about 2 years, right before I moved to the university where I currently work. And I taught lower secondary and upper secondary. And I have to say, lower secondary is tough. You know, it really is. It really is tough. It's a really challenging age to work with, I think. Upper secondary, in my experience, has been a little bit more fun. I think students kind of have a better feel for who they are as a person, and it's not such a crazy time, you know, in terms of like hormones and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, okay. So a lot of secondary teachers, which is good. In terms of the session today, we are going to have some activities that will really apply to primary and secondary, tertiary school as well. Public, private, doesn't matter. The activities that we'll look at today will be pretty adaptable to different age groups and different contexts. But I went from teaching in a private language school to teaching in a public school. Big difference. Class sizes. Wow. In my private language school, I was looking at maybe 10 students per lesson, and then in the public school, it went up to about 20, 25. One more thing before I get the presentation up. What's your average class size? Just give me the number in the chat box. Your average class size. Right now, I'm at the university. I've got 18 is my average class size. Oh, I saw somebody with 1 or 2 there. Very nice. Yeah, I teach privately as well, so I get those small groups as well. Okay, so not such crazy numbers. Nobody's in the 30s, which is very, very good. Yeah, the numbers look. Everyone's pretty much under 20. 20 is a lot, man. 20 is a lot. It's a lot of little ones to have running around the classroom. Yeah. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Last thing before we move on, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me? We'll do just personal questions about me personally, or about professional questions. Just very, very, very quickly, we'll have a really short Q&A, and then we'll have another Q&A at the end of the session. Okay. Is there anything that you'd like to know about me personally and professionally, just before we get officially started? I'm from San Diego, from Southern California, from a suburb near San Diego. I love San Diego too, Thomas. Yes, I have 2 kids. Maya is 7, and Maya is starting school next week. And my wife and I are freaking out just a little bit, almost as much as Maya is. I can't believe she's starting school. I also have a 4-year-old, Theodore. He just turned, he's 4.5 now. He turned 4 in February. Course books or prepare your own material. I use both, actually. I use both. I use course books, and particularly when we switched to online teaching, I started using my English lab quite a bit, actually, and it was a really nice, useful resource to accompany online lessons. But I do both. Are your students here different from yours over there? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, Lucia. My students are mostly Polish. I get 1 course per semester. I have a mixed nationality course, 18 students, 18 different countries. It's part of a kind of international master's degree program. So that gets to be very, very, very interesting having such a, kind of a cultural mix. I speak Polish. I don't speak Czech besides Dobry den, but I do speak Polish. I'm probably about a B2 Polish speaker. Yeah, why did I travel? I moved from California first to Barcelona, which I'll tell you about a bit later in the session. And then I found a job in Poland, and I was just very adventurous. I just thought, why not? Poland is a really nice place to work. It's a nice place to live. This part of Europe, in fact, our part of Europe, is lovely, right? It's really nice. Very close to Prague, for example, which is one of the nice things about living in southern Poland. The artwork on the wall behind me, good question. Those two are pictures my wife and I took on our honeymoon in Cambodia. And that one, which is kind of hard to see, that one is a surrealist painting by a Polish artist, Maciek Siódmak. It's something that my wife really liked, so I got it for as a present a long time ago. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on with some more sort of teaching related business. I want to get my presentation up here. Just give me one moment to get my PDF up. Okay, here we go. Okay, so just before I get started, a quick quiz on California. Answers in the chat box, please. What is the capital of California? Yes, Sacramento is correct. Yeah, Sacramento is the capital of California. Very good. Next quiz question. Highest population. What do you think? Highest population. Answers in the chat box. Yes, Los Angeles is correct. Absolutely, Los Angeles. I forget the actual numbers. The city of San Diego has about 1.5 to 2 million, but when you include the county of San Diego, the population just about doubles. But San Francisco, I can't remember what the actual population is, but Los Angeles is the highest. Next question: the state animal. What is the state animal of California? Yeah, the grizzly bear. If you look, there's a blurred California flag in the background of the PDF there. Yeah, it's the grizzly bear, the California grizzly bear. And I believe we've got one more California quiz question here. How long is the California coastline? Ah, very long. Yeah, it is. It is, Denko. It is very long. The correct answer here is A, 1,350 kilometers. Answer B is for the Hawaii coastline. Answer C is for the Louisiana coastline. So those are I think those are the biggest three coastlines in the U.S. I don't know where Alaska falls though. I'm not sure where Alaska falls. Maybe in another session we can look at that. But I included this quiz because it's something kind of personal for me, but also because quizzes I think are really nice little activities to do in the class for many reasons. To have a little bit of fun, to practice language. You can see these types of quizzes. They're used a lot in course books. And one little thing that I like to do as well, if time provides and if my students can handle it, is to make their own quizzes. Right, is to get students to make their own quiz. So if we do a quiz like this UK Today quiz we can see here, I might have an activity to follow up with and have students write their own quiz. I am quite, let's say, liberal in the classroom in terms of allowing students to use their phones. So I'll let them look up some information on their phones and they can make their own quizzes. I think it's fun. It can be very challenging, and especially secondary students, they like to kind of try and stump their classmates, right? To make a really tough quiz that their classmates can't quite get. And it can be a fun way to practice language, right? To practice new language, which is kind of what we're looking at today. We're going to look at Lexis across the competencies. which basically means how Lexis shows up and how it can be addressed in several skills areas. So we'll look at how Lexis pops up in receptive skills. We'll look at ways to present new language, and of course, ways to practice new language, and some of the things that we need to keep in mind that I think are quite important to keep in mind as teachers, especially secondary teachers, I suppose. So the areas that we're kind of going to focus on today are these. And we'll look at breakdowns in communication, briefly why they occur, how to avoid them, things like that. We're also going to look at meaning, right? Meaning is one of the key elements of new language, right? You've got meaning, pronunciation, and form. Meaning is always first, and what does it mean? What does it mean to actually know a word, right? What does that actually involve? It's not as straightforward as you might be thinking. So we'll look at what's involved in knowing a word, or knowing a collocation, or knowing a phrasal verb, things like that, and also how we can address that in the classroom. And then finally, and actually throughout the session, we're going to look at some activities for presenting and practicing Lexis, and also some pronunciation activities, a couple different short pronunciation activities. I like to work on pronunciation in my classes. I think it's a really important aspect of speaking that often gets ignored. So I'd like to show you a couple little variations to typical kind of drilling activities in the session today. So that's kind of the plan. Okay, that's where we're going for today. And starting with breakdowns in communication, right? These can happen inside the classroom, they can happen outside the classroom, and they can happen for several reasons. And when I first moved to Europe, I personally experienced quite a lot of communication breakdowns. I moved to Barcelona. And I lived in Barcelona for about 3 months. And before I arrived, I know Spanish, right? I took Spanish in high school. I was basically fluent in Spanish before I moved to Barcelona. I was also very, very naive and a little bit, I don't want to say dumb. Let's just say naive. I was quite naive. I didn't know in Catalonia there was a whole separate language and culture, right? I had no idea. But I don't know if you guys have ever been to Barcelona. Has anyone ever been to Barcelona? Just in the chat box. Anyone been to Barcelona? Well, if you go, you'll find out that a lot of people who live in Catalonia, in fact, are bilingual, right? They grow up learning Catalan and Castilian Spanish, right? Anyways, the point is, when I went there, I had a map, but I didn't want to use it. I thought I can speak Spanish. I can ask people for directions, which I did, right? I was walking around looking for my hostel, asking people for directions. The first couple people I asked had no idea what they were saying, right? It was just very confused. They were speaking Spanish, but I just had no idea what exactly they were saying, right? Now, if you can imagine, right, you ask someone for directions, what in the chat box, right, what might be some words or phrases you expect to hear when someone's giving you directions? Just give me some examples of language for giving directions. Yeah. Exactly. And Radka, you hit the nail on the head right there, right and left, right? I was listening for the words izquierda, a la izquierda, a la derecha, right? This is right and left in Spanish. And all the things that you guys are putting in the chat box, all this type of stuff, but mostly like left and right, And as I was talking with people, asking them where I could find this hostel, nobody was using the words left and right. And I was like, what the heck is wrong with me? I lost confidence. I just thought, man, my Spanish is horrible. I thought I was totally fluent. I can't understand what people are saying. And what they were saying was up and down, por arriba, por abajo. And now this is where the communication breakdown kind of came in. It was linguistic, but it was also cultural. Because if you think about Barcelona, Barcelona is situated between the mountains and the sea. So when you come to a crossing, chances are if you turn left or you turn right, you're going to be going up towards the mountains or down towards the sea, up and down. So when they give directions, they say you go to this road, you go down, you go to this road, and you go up. So they were using up and down, which I just figured out after living there for about 2 or 3 weeks. So it was this massive breakdown in communication. To make a long story short, I couldn't find my hostel. It was the end of June. I was carrying a massive backpack. I was sweating. I was tired. It was just this crazy thing. Everything worked out in the end, but it was this massive communication breakdown. And these communication breakdowns can be very demotivating for teachers, for students. They can cause lots of problems. So let's just really quickly in the chat box, what might be some reasons for communication breakdowns in the classroom or outside of the classroom? Just a couple ideas in the chat box. What causes these communication breakdowns inside the classroom or outside? Yeah, slang, absolutely. Pronunciation, accent, yeah. I remember the first time I met somebody from Glasgow, Scotland. That was an interesting conversation because I had no idea what this person was saying. It was like super advanced English. Yeah, shyness, of course. People's just kind of personalities as well. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, phrasal verbs, right? Idiomatic language, right? Americans are infamous for using lots of phrasal verbs, lots of maybe not exactly slang, but idiomatic kind of language, right? A couple ideas that I had are here. The last two, obviously, maybe being a bit more specific to the classroom, but yeah. Anyways, new language, right, can also be quite a big part of this, and the idea is to avoid these communication breakdowns. Now, culture for our classrooms, culture might not be a huge one. I mean, like I mentioned before, 90% of my students, 90% of my classes are monocultural. I have mostly Polish students, and I'm assuming it's probably the same for most of you. You probably have mostly students from one country. Is that correct? So we won't get quite so many, cultural differences in the classroom, but other things, new grammar structures, new lexis, possibly background noise. If any of you have had to use a foreign language on the phone, when I have to speak Polish on the phone, or when I used to speak Spanish on the phone, I would go to a room, close the doors, so it was absolutely quiet, right? So I could actually really focus and concentrate on what was happening. But one way to help clarify new language is to use video, right? Is using video, because the video channel really helps to clarify language, because you can kind of see what's happening. And I'm sure you guys have probably been beaten to death with ideas about video and being encouraged to use video in the classroom. And we're not going to do tons of stuff on video today. The session that I'm doing tomorrow will have a little bit more of a focus on creating and using video in the classroom. That'll be one section of the talk tomorrow. But I really think that when I had language lessons, probably the same for a lot of you. When we had language lessons, it was a cassette tape, right? This is how we did listening activities, right? Maybe it was a CD eventually, but these things are slowly becoming a little bit archaic, and the video channel really is what I think kind of connects with learners a lot nowadays. So we're going to watch a short video. This is a still from the video. Based on the picture, what do you think what might the video be about based on that picture? Twins, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's about twins. Very good. We're going to watch a short video, okay? And the when I put the video up, those questions are going to disappear, so you might want to jot them down. But we're going to watch just the first minute of the video, and you need to answer those two questions. What's the main question that's being answered in the video, and how do they want to go about answering the question? Okay, so we'll watch to get the answer to those two questions. Okay, let me get the video up here. Can everybody hear that? I've just paused it, but was the audio was it audible? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so here we go.
We're in London at St Thomas's Hospital for a very special gathering of twins. Scientists love identical twins because they're perfect for examining how nature and nurture affect our lives. By studying both the similarities and differences between identical twins, scientists can begin to answer the big question, are we born or are we made the way we are? If twins have grown up in the same environment, it's difficult to know whether it's genes or experiences that have made them similar. It would be easier to check if they'd had different lives. Cases of twins growing up apart are rare, but they do exist. Chinese twins Mia and Alexandra were adopted separately when they were babies.
Okay. So what's the, just quickly in the chat box, what's the main question the video is addressing? Yeah, good. Okay, good. Yeah. Nature or nurture, are we born or are we made? Okay. And then how do they want to go about answering this this question? Okay, good. Yeah, they're going to look at identical twins growing up in different regions, right? Yeah, it's an interesting kind of experience. There's a really old movie from the 80s. It's called Trading Places. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. It also addresses this question, right? Nature or nurture, right? It's a classic 80s comedy, which kind of attempts to answer the same question, but not by using twins, right? Okay, yeah. Anyhow, I had a second. I think in the interest of time, we're going to sort of skip the second task that was for that video. It was about a little bit of language, but the question was basically already. You guys already answered the question that I had in the chat box. Let me just get the presentation back up here. Okay. The next question was a language question, right? They use two other phrases that mean nature or nurture, and you guys have put them in the chat box already. Let me see. It was, are we born or are we made? And the other one, if you remember, the other way they kind of said that. Anyone remember? Nature, nurture, born or made. The other one was, is it genes or experiences, right? Genes or experiences. Okay. So that was some vocabulary. When I was kind of planning this little short activity, I thought, okay, this might be some potential new vocabulary for students. But those phrases, genes or experiences, might come out in a clearer way because of the video channel, right? Because of having some video support for students. And excuse me. Video is also a way to, so it's a really good way to clarify Lexis, which is the whole focus of the session today. And the reason, one of the reasons for focusing on Lexis, three reasons are right here. Learners can be more accurate, right? They can express themselves more accurately. If you think about when you first start learning a foreign language, someone says, how do you feel? I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel good, I feel bad. But as you learn more vocabulary, you can express yourself a lot more accurately. Lexis, particularly linguistic chunks, functional chunks, things like that, they facilitate developing the four skills. I doubt you've ever had a lesson, a receptive skills lesson, a reading or listening that didn't involve some kind of language, right? That didn't involve some vocabulary, pre-teaching some key vocabulary, or some kind of follow-up kind of vocabulary activity. And then finally, focusing on Lexis opens the door to activities, right? Infogap activities, communicative activities, all those types of things. Most of the activities that I have in my little bag of tricks, a lot of it is for practicing language. Okay, it's for practicing vocabulary. So one of the activities that I'm a big fan of is it's an oldie but goodie. It's called Backs to the Board. A lot of you probably know this activity, but I'm going to give you a couple little twists, a couple little kind of caveats for different ways to run this activity. For those of you who don't know, Back to the Board is not for presenting new language, it's for practicing vocabulary, right? Practicing known vocabulary. So if you had a lesson on sports, for example, and you had some kind of vocabulary bank that you're working with, you could use Back to the Board to practice it. The way it works is you basically have a student describing a word to another student, and the other student has to guess. If you work at a private language school, or if you have space in your classroom, what I like to do is I write the word on the board. I have a student who has their back to the board, so they can't see the word, and the group has to describe the word to them, and they have to guess. They have to guess what the word is. Okay, let's do one quick example. Okay, one quick example. I'm going to describe a word. Just in the chat box, what is the word? This is, when you're a teacher, this is what you write on in the classroom, so the whole class can see what you're writing. On the board. Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, next one is all of you are currently taking part in a webinar. Fantastic. Last one. The capital of California is Sacramento. Okay, fantastic. So again, depending on how much physical space you have in the classroom, you can make a board race out of this activity, right? You can have two teams, two students sitting physically with their back to the board. The teacher writes the word on the board, and the class is divided into two halves, and they describe the word to their partner in a kind of a competitive way. But as I mentioned before, I work at a university currently with 18 students, and I don't have space in my classroom for my students to run around. And a lot of times I have classes that start at 7:30. My students just can't be asked to get up and run around the classroom. So what I do instead is I project a word list onto my screen. I have a kind of an ongoing word list that I build with my students. It's incidental vocabulary that comes up in the course of our lessons. We spend the first 5 minutes of every lesson. Students come into class. I say good morning. I project my word list on the board. It could be 10, 20, 30 words, whatever it is. And students, I ask them to stand up, okay? And with a partner, one person turns so they cannot see the word list, and the other student is looking at the list, picks a word, describes it, and the other student has to guess what the word is, and then they switch, right? Then they switch. So this is one way to do the same activity with a little bit more freedom. It's a lot more student focused, and it's a space saver because you can do it in whatever size room as long as everybody can see the list of words. And I think it's a useful activity for a couple of reasons. Okay, first of all, one thing that I always tell my students, if you're guessing the word and you don't know what the word is, the first thing you do is turn around and look at the list of words. Because remember, you've got a list of about 10, 15, maybe 20 words to choose from, right? Think about the definition, look at the list of words. Okay, now I know it's webinar. Okay, now I remember, right? It kind of jogs their memory when they actually see the word. If they still don't know the answer based on the list, then their partner can tell them as kind of a last resort, okay? But one of the things this does is it kind of imitates a sort of a real life situation where you might not know the word that you want to use. So it helps students practice circumlocution, right? Describing a word using other words that they know, right? To still manage to get their point across and to communicate. There's a really popular board game which works in the same way. You guys probably know this game. You have a card. There's words you're not allowed to say. What's that game called? Taboo. Yeah, exactly. Taboo. So it's kind of a different, more like simplified take on taboo. And it's materials light or materials free. All you really need is a word list. and you can go from there. So a little variation on the sort of traditional backs to the board. You can also do it with, of course, with collocations, right? It doesn't have to be individual words. With younger learners, especially, you can use short sentences. You know, they are running, for example, something quite short. You can also use flashcards for this. It doesn't have to be a whole word list, right? You can use flashcards as well. So it's, I think, a pretty adaptable kind of activity. And as I mentioned before, I do this with my university students as one of our main ways of reviewing vocabulary. And we do surveys at the end of the semester. And you know, 70 to 80% of my students put on the survey, we liked the vocab thing that we did at the beginning of class. It seemed to be a really effective way of repeating that kind of known vocabulary. So just kind of a fun way to practice vocabulary, and it's not exactly a strictly communicative activity, right? It's more of a meaningful activity. It's kind of an infogap activity, but these types of activities, especially ones that are more communicative, I think they make language learning a little bit more memorable. Because students are being challenged, they're also possibly having a little bit of fun. They're talking with their partners as well, with their classmates. It adds a little bit of variety to the classroom, and of course, it provides that freer practice, which I think is what our students really need. Right? I focus a lot on communication in my lessons. Because most of my students, they have pretty good vocabularies, they have pretty good knowledge of grammar structures, but what they need is practice speaking, practice writing. They need that productive skills kind of practice. And this is one thing that communicative activities are, you know, obviously really great for. And also, if you think about using course books in the classroom, right? If you can kind of close your eyes and picture a double page spread of a reading or a listening, oftentimes at the very far right corner of that double page spread in the course book, you've got a speaking activity, right? And it's, you know, it often will follow, or it follows, you know, follows language work, you know, as it should. I don't know how much time you guys have in your lessons, but if you run out of time, those little speaking activities are often what gets left out, right? And then if you think about, you know, younger learners, lower secondary students, they're kind of shy. They're not in a big hurry to speak English in class, right? So sometimes, even if you do have time for those activities, they can kind of fall flat sometimes. So making an activity like back to the board, for example, still provides some speaking practice, but hopefully it's a bit more motivating for students. And the last thing I'll say on this topic is in terms of finding ways to increase the amount of communication that happens in the classroom. Again, if you're using a course book, it probably comes with a teacher's book, and a lot of teachers' books have activities, right? These practice activities that go with the student's book. And one thing that I'll do in my lessons is I'll start with that teacher's book activity. Right, I'll make my photocopies of it. I'll do as much of a lead-in as I need to, and I'll get students kind of communicating, which makes the lesson a little bit more task-based. Right, if they have some kind of ranking activity they have to do, or maybe not so much a crossword, but those kinds of teachers' book type, a board game, for example, I'll get them doing that activity first, and then add in some of the support later on, maybe some homework exercises, then we review in the following lesson. So it kind of turns that coursebook activity upside down on its head. So the communication is definitely going to be there, probably full of mistakes, right? Which is totally fine in my opinion. And it kind of starts with that teacher's book sort of activity. Okay, and again, that kind of ensures that class time is going to be spent on, you know, communicating. Okay, so just a couple little activities for avoiding communication breakdowns and for increasing the amount of communication that's done in the classroom. But of course, before all this practice happens, you have to present new language in some way, and in presenting new language, meaning is normally one of the most important things, right? It always comes first. You've got meaning, pronunciation, and form, right? These three elements of presenting new language, meaning always has to come first, right? One of the first steps in understanding new language, and if you think about, I mean, all disciplines define their terminology, right? If you think about, you know, chemists, biologists, historians, when they write these academic papers, in the abstract or the introduction, they have a definition of terms, and they give these terms, and they say, look, when I say this word, this is what I mean. So defining terms, clarifying meaning, even across all disciplines, is one of the most important things to look at. And it's not always straightforward, right? It's not always simple. All of these things that you can see here are involved in knowing a word, and these can all be problem areas for our students. Just take a quick look at that that list of things there. So meaning is complex, right? Meaning can be quite complex. It's not just a matter of, okay, look it up in the dictionary, right? Especially with English, when you've got a dictionary entry, you've got 4 different entries for the same word. Oh, it's a verb and a noun. Fantastic. That just adds a little bit of extra fun to our lesson today. So to say the least, meaning can be complex. Some other tricky areas of meaning, false friends is one. I know from learning Spanish, there's a really sort of kind of comical false friend. If you look at that picture there on the top right, does anybody, maybe some of you know Spanish, what's that false friend that's represented by that picture? Excuse me, anybody know Spanish out there? Yeah, Luciano, embarazada and embarrassed. Yeah, embarazada means pregnant, right? It doesn't mean embarrassed, but it's almost exactly the same, right? One big one in Polish, between Polish and English, is nervous and zdenerwowane, right? Which just kind of means annoyed or aggravated. Maybe in the chat box you can put some false friends in Czech or Slovakian, some false friends between your language and English. Any big ones that come to mind? Okay, yeah, I think in Polish as well, aktualne and actual is not the same. Okay. Smoking, Martina, you mean is it like a smoking jacket? That kind of smoking? Yeah, that's kind of a funny one, isn't it? Dress and dress, yeah, Jana, good one. Dresse, yeah, in Polish it's dresse, yeah. Zuzana, very good one, yeah, sympathetic. Okay, so there's lots of them out there, right? There's lots of them out there. Another area that can be tricky for students, delexicalized verbs, right? Like make versus do, take, have, get, right? These types of verbs that really have no meaning on their own. They have to be in some kind of context to take on some kind of meaning. And then, of course, job versus work. This is another classic one, right? These words, they can all cause problems with meaning. Cause some confusion, cause some difficulties for learners. So the whole idea behind meaning is quite complex, and there's all these extra areas, right, that add to some of the complexity. And it's not only with language learners. I mean, when I moved to Europe, I started teaching and learning myself British English, right? Because it is quite different from American English. And I first taught in a small town in Poland, and I worked with a couple English teachers from England, right? One guy, his name was Nick, very nice guy. And I was talking to Nick on a Friday, and I said, Nick, what are your plans for the weekend? And he said, oh, well, I think tomorrow I'm going to have a lion. And I said, sorry, what was that? And he said, a lion? I'm going to have a lion? And I really had no idea what he was talking about. You know, I understood the animal lion, and I thought, like a big breakfast? Is that Was that what you're talking about? I had no idea what he was saying, right? But what he was actually saying, he was saying a lion, right? A lion, which just basically means to sleep in, right? To sleep later than usual. Yeah, yeah. I had no idea, what he was talking about, right? To have a lion. Part of it was obviously cultural. I thought he was saying a different word entirely, So these communication breakdowns, these difficulties with Lexis aren't limited just to language learners, right? It can happen. It can happen to the best of us. Let's say. So if we take this example, to have a lion, as this was basically new language for me, right? This was a new piece of language for me. So if we take this as our example, we've got these three different elements here, right? Meaning, pronunciation, and form. Okay, so the meaning, eventually we clarified. Pronunciation of the whole phrase, to have a lion, right? That's also one of the factors. And then in terms of form, we've got internal form, external form. Okay, it's a multi-word verb, it's intransitive, and it's semi-formal, right? It's not exactly slang, and it's not formal language. It's kind of a semi-formal piece of language. And what it is, it's a colloquial chunk of language, right? It's a multi-word verb. Don't think I would exactly call it a phrasal verb, but I don't want to get into that whole debate about phrasal verb, multi-word verb, and so on. Let's just say it's a multi-word verb. But these are also some areas that can be tricky for students. Here's a few more examples. Some of them are more idiomatic than others, right? To pull my socks up. There's a few more examples there. But you could argue that this is natural language, right? Previously in the session, we talked about reasons for communication breakdowns. Well, these types of phrases, you could say they're natural language, they're real, quote unquote, real English, right? And this can also cause kind of a problem, which again, lends itself to the idea that meaning has to come first, right? I mean, absolutely has to come first. Not only these types of things, on the weekend versus at the weekend, one's British, one's American, things like that. And we can also talk about these lexical relationships, right? Or collocations. Does anybody here work with collocations in the classroom? Just a quick yes in the chat box if you work with collocations occasionally. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the lexical approach, which probably isn't too surprising. But collocations, they're not so easy to work with. They're not the easiest thing. One of the problems with collocations is when students say why is it this combination of words? Because it just is, which nobody likes that answer. Nobody likes to hear that answer. And it's worth pointing out that there's some good combinations, some bad word combinations. But let me give you a really simple short activity for practicing and developing collocations that I use all the time. It's not even an activity; it's just a question, right? It's just a question. The question is, what's the opposite? Okay, what's the opposite? So if you have on the right side of this this slide here, you can see a kind of course book sort of activity that has a bunch of collocations in red. And if I was using this activity in the class, once we've clarified language, we've done the language work as an expansion kind of activity, as an additional activity, I would say, okay, what's the opposite of these collocations? So in the chat box, what is the opposite of to have a job? And you've got to give me a collocation as the opposite, not an individual word. Okay. So yeah, and jobless, we could say to be jobless, right? Okay, to get the sack. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. To be unemployed, for example, right? In the chat box, to be unemployed. Yeah. Yeah. The second one, to work hard. What's the opposite of to work hard? Okay, yeah. There's not only one correct answer, right? It's hardly working, yeah. There's not only one correct answer. What's the opposite of to leave for work? To leave for work. To leave home for work, for example, right? Like to go to work. Yeah, Yeah, exactly. So it's a really I think it's a really simple question. It's a nice way to develop collocations, and it doesn't take much prep work, right? You might want to think if you have higher levels, you probably need to think about it a little bit beforehand. I certainly do, but I do this with my university students quite often, and I give them a lot of freedom to say, give me any opposite that you can think of, and as long as it's a reasonable collocation, and it kind of makes sense, then it's kind of an acceptable answer. And one of the nice things about this activity, it's materials free, right? Because you just, okay, what's the opposite of these collocations? And the reason for this activity is not only to expand students' base of collocations, let's say, but it's also to get them thinking in terms of chunks of language, going beyond the individual word and get them to think about, expressions, right? Whole chunks of language. So I think it's a really easy way to kind of just say, okay, let's double the amount of collocations we just learned by coming up with the opposites of these 5 or 6 collocations that came up in the course book, right? So just a really short activity there for developing collocations a little bit. So previously we looked at this phrase, to have a lion, right, as a piece of new language, and the meaning there is relatively straightforward, right? It's relatively clear. It wasn't clear to me at first, but it was quickly clarified, basically through context, right? Basically through context, and with the help of Nick explaining what the heck it meant, right? But there are a lot of dimensions of meaning, right? You can see 7 dimensions of meaning there on the right side. We're not going to go into all these today. We just haven't got time. And if you look at the little cartoon there, don't consume if seal is broken. That's made into a cartoon about the shark not eating the seal. Where else might you see that phrase, do not consume if seal is broken? Where else might you see that expression with a whole different meaning? That's right. Yeah, on packaged food, canned food, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Do not consume if the little seal is is broken, right? Yeah, on a tin, exactly. And with pills as well. Okay, good. So we're going to take a look here. We're just going to kind of focus on denotation for a moment, right? And denotation is basically just a dictionary definition. Okay, and if we start with these basic words, right? Green, blue, and red. Okay. I challenge everybody. Let's start with green. Okay. I want you to try and think before you put anything in the chat box. Okay. Don't type anything in the chat box yet. Okay. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. And then I want you to put your answers in the chat box. But what I want you to think of, you have green, obviously the color. Okay. See if you can think of 2 more definitions for the word green, but don't put them in the chat box just yet. Okay. Just think about it. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat box, and when you put them in together. Okay, so just do the first word, comma, second word. 2 possible other definitions for the word green. Okay, so in the chat box, 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, yeah, good, very good, very, very good. Yeah, ecological, inexperienced, right? Those are the ones that I thought of. Yeah, those are the ones that I thought of. Very good. Let's do the same thing for the color blue. A little bit more challenging now, a little bit more challenging. Just take a moment. Don't put anything in the chat box just yet. 2 other possible, besides the color, 2 meanings of the word blue. 3, 2, 1, go. Sad, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, to have the blues as well. Good. Yeah, there's lots of little idiomatic expressions that come with blue. Okay, a blue collar, yeah, blue collar worker, for example, very good. I'll show you one more example in a moment. Let's do red next. Okay, 2 other possible meanings for the word red in the chat box. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, good. Yeah, those are all very, very good. Let me give you my little answers here. So obviously we had the color. The other one for blue that I was thinking of, it's a way of cooking red meat. And this is one that I didn't really learn until I was in my 30s. Anybody know if you order your steak blue, how is it cooked? Is it cooked for a long time or cooked for a short time? It's like less than rare. It's for a very short time. If you order your steak blue, it's gonna jump off the plate and run away, right? It's like you put it in the pan for a minute, flip it, and that's it. So it's very, very rare, right? That's blue. And then for red, a lot of people came up with the idea angry and also losing money. If a company says they're in the red, right, it means they've lost money. So even the idea of denotation can be can be quite tricky. It's not always straightforward. So because of this, for the complexity of meaning, but also because our learners, they know different meanings of words, right? They have different vocabularies, right? That's just a fact. So if you go into a receptive skills lesson, you've got a reading or listening, you don't always know exactly what's going to be new for your students, right? As experienced teachers, we have a pretty good idea, but we don't exactly know what our students know and what they don't know. So one way to find out is to do an activity which is done. This activity. Okay. Words I know, words I think I know, and words I don't know. Okay, so we're going to quickly do this activity. I made a little mistake here. I wanted to hide those words from you, but it doesn't matter if they're hidden. Somebody can't hear. Anybody else having a problem with audio? Can you guys hear me? No problem. Okay. If you are having a problem with the audio, you might want to sign out and sign back into the webinar. That might hopefully that'll solve the problem. Or just check to say that you haven't muted turned your volume off. So the way this activity works, again, this is for basically to find out how much I need to pre-teach, right? How much key vocabulary needs to be pre-taught before a reading or a listening or a watching, right? So I ask students to copy this table in their notebook, words I know, words I think I know, words I don't know. And then I dictate 5, 6, 7, 8 words that I think might be new for them, right? The words that I've identified as problem words, key vocabulary that the students might not know, okay? So I dictate the words: bullhorn, supine, waggle, bicker, tea. And if they know the word, then they write it under know. And knowing the word, for me, kind of means they can teach it to someone else, right? They know it well enough to either translate or to teach it to their colleagues using a description, a definition of some kind. Words I think I know means I've heard that word before, but I can't quite remember what it was, right? And then words I don't know is just like when you're clueless, right? When you're totally clueless, okay? So the way I run this activity, students copy down the table, I dictate the words, and then in pairs or groups of 3, it becomes a peer teaching activity. And the goal is for students to move all the words into words they know, but not using dictionaries, not using translators, using each other, right? Using each other. So if I've got words my partner doesn't know, then I tell them what they mean. And this is one time, one moment in class where I might be quite fine with L1 in the classroom. I teach a lot of high-level students where I work now, a lot of C1, C2 level students. So for them, I tell them you've got to do it in English, right? Don't translate. But for students that are maybe even at the B2 level, I would be totally okay with L1 in the classroom at this point, as long as they kind of know what the words mean, right? So again, the purpose of this activity is to find out how much language work needs to be done before a listening, reading, or watching, right? So again, they've written the words down, They're going to collaborate, and what you end up with, I monitor the activity, so I check each group of 3, and I check to see which words none of them know, right? And so oftentimes what you're left with is not a list of 8 words that have to be clarified before reading, watching, or listening, but oftentimes it's just 1 or 2 words, right? It's just 1 or 2 words. And we're talking, this activity can take about 5 minutes. It encourages peer teaching. It puts kind of the onus on students, makes them responsible for the meanings of these words. And it can save quite a bit of time. But if you're left with 2 or 3 words that no one in the class knows, you've got to do something with them, right? You've got to do something. And there's lots of things you could do, right? You could tell them, look it up in a dictionary. You could just give them the definitions. But if I've got time, an activity that I really like, that I like to do, is called Call My Bluff. Right, it's called Call My Bluff. So keep in mind, you've got 2, 3, 4 words, maybe more, in fact, right? That nobody in the class really knows what they mean. Okay, so that the next activity is I assign a word to each pair or each group of 3. And what they have to do with that word is they have to present 3 definitions of the word, 1 which is correct and 2 which are not correct. And they're going to quiz the rest of the class on what this word means. And this is where I would allow dictionaries and translators, and where I monitor very closely to make sure they've got the right definition for that context. And if you're paying attention right now, you might be thinking, where do these words come from? They're just random words. Where did they come from? Well, where did they come from? I mean, not these 5 words, but if you have this activity in class, it's before a receptive, exactly, yeah, Susanna, they come from the text. They came from the listening, they came from the video, they came from the text. So what you need then is context, right? Context is missing. So before they write their definitions, they get the reading out, they find the word in the text, and they underline it, write the sentence down, however you want the activity to run, right? They have to find the word in the text first, in the listening, in the tape script, or the video scripts, or in the actual text itself. So now we've got some context. So it gives the other students a chance to figure out what these words mean. And from there, they just use dictionaries to pick out the correct definition, and they write 2 other false definitions. So if we take bullhorn as an example, what do you guys think? Which is the correct definition of bullhorn? It's B. Yeah, it's B. Also called a megaphone. Right, also called a megaphone. I think megaphones are usually like electronic, right? They have batteries or something. But yeah, megaphone. Okay, yeah. Bullhorn is kind of American slang. I was trying. I knew I would have obviously English teachers for the session, so I tried to pick some kind of random words that nobody would know, just to help kind of illustrate the activity. The next one was supine. So there's your example sentence for supine. This one, it came up in a book that I was reading. I had to look it up. I didn't know what it was, and it wasn't clear through context. You guys are good. Yeah, very good. Lying face up. Exactly. That's supine. There it is. Yeah, lying face up. That is exactly supine. So again, this is I think a fun communicative activity that can kind of follow this pre-teaching activity where you find out how much students know, and then from there you can make the activity very student-centered, right? Very student-centered, and still, clarifying words. I realize what time it is. It's getting quite late. I've got one more short activity. Okay, I don't want to leave out pronunciation. Okay, and when I think about pronunciation, I think about mostly stress and sounds. Okay, word sounds and word stress, and I think we might be quite lucky in terms of our students. I know Polish students have pretty good overall pronunciation in English. I suspect students from Czechia are probably the same, probably students from Slovakia as well. Not a lot of big problems with individual sounds. Minimal pairs can be difficult, I think. The E and the I. That can be quite difficult. You can find lots of activities for those in like pronunciation courses though, right? Word stress, I think, is also quite useful to go over with students. That can be trickier, I think, than word sounds. But a lot of pronunciation, I don't know what you guys do in class, but a lot of it is repeat after me. You know, that's a lot of how pronunciation is addressed. You can also, course books do a little bit better of a job, I think, because you can say, okay, listen, repeat the words, mark the stress syllable, right? Which you don't need an audio recording to do that. We can do it ourselves. Like, we can be the recording if we want to be. But a lot of things, if you think about how far language teaching and language learning has come since, you know, audiolingualism, for example, since behaviorism, when it comes to pronunciation, it's like, repeat after me. It's just behaviorist, isn't it? But it is still quite effective when it comes to pronunciation. So a little variation on just repeat after me. One thing to do with younger learners is to do a high tone of voice. So repeat after me, bicker, 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 and to kind of alter the pitch of your voice. Right, just one small variation. Another thing that I like to do is I'll ask students to say the word quietly to themselves 5 times. Okay, everybody, please say bicker to yourself 5 times quietly. And everybody goes bicker, 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 bicker. And it gives them a chance to practice saying the word where everyone else is still talking, so they're not performing it in front of the whole class. Right. And in terms of that whole class kind of pronunciation performance, choral drilling, right, is one of the things that I learned when I was being trained to be a teacher. You drill the word together as a whole group 3 times, and then you can call on individual learners to check and see if they've got it. Right. But aside from that, say the word quietly 5 times to yourself, right, is one variation. And another variation is called a disappearing drill. Okay, it's a disappearing drill. And this one we won't actually be able to say because I can't hear you guys. But the way a disappearing drill works is I write words on the board, no more than 10. Okay, no more than 10. And I drill the words with my students. Okay, so everybody, bullhorn, bullhorn, supine, supine, waggle, and so on, right? And then I erase the last word from the list. But they've got to say all 5. So again, bullhorn, supine, waggle, bicker, tea. And then I erase the next one. Bullhorn, supine, waggle, bicker, tea. And then I erase the next one, and the next one, and the next one, until you're left with an empty board, and they have to say the words. So it's a little variation on the typical kind of repeat after me, which challenges students. It also challenges them, and it's I think kind of a clever way of forcing them to say the word loads and loads of times. Absolutely, Petra, you can do it with flashcards as well. And one other thing that I'll do sometimes in terms of word stress is when I get my list of 5 words, I'll put the stress pattern next to the word. So small circle, big circle, where the big circle is the stressed syllable. And then I just erase the word. So what they're left with when I erase all the words is they have a stress pattern and a blank next to it. So they can see the stress pattern, but they can't see the actual word. Okay, so that's called a disappearing drill. You can do it with, it works just fine with a whiteboard, right? You just write the word on the board, the words on the board, not more than 10. To be honest, I'm getting old. I can't remember more than 10 words in the order they're in. 8's a good number as well. You erase the last one, the whole list again. Erase the last one, do the whole list again. It's just a little variation on a typical kind of pronunciation drill. Again, it's called a disappearing drill. Okay, sorry to rush through the last activity. We've gone over time a little bit. That is basically everything for today. The materials that I used in the lesson today, the stuff that came from course books, all came from Focus 2nd edition. Before I go, are there any questions I can answer about the session? Please, if you have a question, please type it in the chat box. And thank you guys for attending today. While you're thinking of questions, I'll be back tomorrow. I believe 4 or 5 o'clock. I can't remember which time it is. I've got it in my notes somewhere. We're going to be looking at authenticity in the classroom with some more activities to do as well. Any questions? Any questions out there? Okay. I'd also like to thank Pearson Adventures Books for bringing me today. I've worked with the Czechia team in the past, and they're a really, really great team to work with. So thank you guys very much for putting this together. And again, thank you teachers for attending. And good luck. If I don't see you tomorrow, good luck with the upcoming semester. I hope everybody, manages to cope with summer ending and the school year starting again. Our precious summer is almost gone. Okay, it looks like there's no questions, so that's all for today, guys. Thank you very much.